Where does Kyler Murray rank in the hierarchy of NFL quarterbacks? Probably should ask a 10-plus year vet of the NFL, right? Let's do it.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. You know the drill every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com. So been doing this a long time. Whenever I can bring somebody smarter on than me to hopefully agree with the things I say every day, we'll find out. I do that. And I'm taking my chances here with one of the best in the business, Dan Orlovsky, ESPN, calling the game Monday night for ESPN+. Dan, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
It's great to be with you, man. Hopefully I can agree with a lot of things you said as well. So we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, this Cardinals team is tough to figure out at this point. You played quarterback in the NFL for quite some time. You were around some good teams. You're around some good players. Kyler Murray is a top blank quarterback in the NFL.
I would probably put him right around top 12, top 14 in the NFL. You know, I think one of the things that I've talked about a lot this offseason is this is probably the best quarterbacking we've had as far as a 1 through like 16 or 18 really good starters, 20 starters in the NFL that we've had in a long time, you know, and so the list continues to grow. You know, I think Kyler has had moments this year where he's played top 5, you know, top 6 quarterback. And then he's had some moments where, you know, the play hasn't necessarily been that high of a level. So I think he's probably somewhere in the 10 to 14 range, let's call it, depending on, you know, what you prefer performance-wise. But I think he's had a strong start to the season.
I'm conflicted in the sense that the highs are always more fleeting than the lows, especially when losses are tied to them. And when you're looking across, you know, the Pat Mahomes and the Joe Burrows and the Justin Herbert, who start out the gate so quickly, it ruins the curve for everybody else, especially for rookies who start for an impoverished franchise for the majority of their existence. It's harder to overcome hurdles in certain situations. And I think that's why I've been a Kyler Murray truther, so to speak. Obviously, he's got his low points. He's got his flaws. Dan, how important is it to compare poor quarterback play to what you have in your backyard as kind of a barometer for, you know what, maybe it's not as bad as one thinks at certain times?
Yeah, it's a dependent position. It's the most dependent position in all of professional sports. I don't care who they are. I don't care who the talent is. We had a season last year where the Super Bowl champion had the worst season of his career, Patrick Mahomes. He's one of the greatest of all time. And so who you're doing it with is about as important as the actual talent that the quarterback has. So, you know, I think that I always say for quarterbacks to play well, it really is, there's 2 tiers, okay? Are you a quarterback, one, that if we're not that good around you, whether your offensive line is subpar, your talent's not great, or maybe the offensive scheme you're with isn't awesome, can you still play solid football? You know, like okay to good football. Mm-hmm. Or if we are good around you, if we do have a really good scheme, or if we do have high-end offensive linemen and skill players, can we win playoff games with you? And I think like that's the measuring stick for a lot of quarterbacks. And you know, I would say Kyler probably for most of his career has probably fallen in the first category where, you know, hasn't been that great around him, and you know, the offensive line hasn't been that awesome, and the receivers aren't that great, and so they're hopefully starting to rebuild that. But I still believe he's had moments of playing good football.
Yeah, here's the test for agree or disagree, because I really value your opinion with this specific thing, and we're going to pivot to Marvin Harrison Jr. in a second here. I see quarterback play nowadays as elite game managers who make special plays when their team needs them. Like, you don't have to be Josh Allen stat stuffing all the time. Like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, smart, special when needed. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would agree. I still think that the search is constantly for the elite playmaker that needs to manage the game less. I think that
Okay.
the NFL still searches for those unique talents. I think the game is getting back to what it was maybe 25 years ago, which is really like the operation of the offense is more important than the consistent splash play. But I do think because of the improvement in the athleticism of the defenders, yeah, you need to have those 3 or 4 plays a game where your athleticism makes up for the lack of X's and O's dominance.
Dan Orlovsky, ESPN, joining me here, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. You were around a certain Calvin Johnson in 2008. Okay.
Yeah.
You saw firsthand what a young, incredibly talented wide receiver and the impact he can make on a team and an organization that lost more than they won at that time. Marvin Harrison Jr. comes into somewhat of the same situation. He still has, it's still a run-first offense. I think it's a great situation for him because they've already got Trey McBride. They've already got James Conner, and Kyler Murray can make some plays on his own. Talk some of the Cardinals fans potentially off the ledge a little bit here with the ups and downs through 5 damn weeks of a wide receiver's young career.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this. Number one, when I was with Calvin, and I was with Calvin the very first day he was an NFL pro, you saw, I remember being in practice and, with certain guys like a John Kitna or, some of the vets and being like, yep, he's going to be good. Like a lot of NFL players know within a day or two. But we also saw he doesn't have that natural hands. Like Calvin was not great catching the football early on. He worked really hard at it, and that's what made him so special at the end of the day. I think this with Marvin, you can see, just watch the game, and when you watch the tape, you go, yep, he's going to be good. Like you could watch his feel, the separation, the way he tracks the ball, the suddenness in and out of cuts and routes. I think the 2 things that are probably worrying, I guess, Cardinals fans, yes, he's playing against elite corners and he's getting the elite corner every week, the guy, because they don't have really another elite receiver. Mike's had some good moments, so that's different in the NFL. So he'll adjust to that. 2, the style of offense doesn't, bode for Marv to get 15 attempts a game. Malik Neighbors in the style of offense, he's going to get 15 to 20 attempts a game or targets a game. What's best for the Cardinals right now offensively is to have those 3 tight ends on the field and run the football the way that they are. And so Marv isn't in an offense yet. I think it'll grow to that where he's going to get a plethora of targets.
Yeah, he wasn't drafted to save the offense, which I think is the best part of where he is right now. And yeah, the numbers, you're right, may suffer initially in the short term, but it's only going to bode well for him in the long term. You'd expect. Dan Orlovsky, ESPN. What are we going to make of Monday night's matchup between the Chargers and the Cardinals, two teams with completely different regimes than they've had and stability, et cetera? We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Arena Club. So here's the thing. I've collected cards on and off my entire life. And for most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka card or a Patrick Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. And I love collecting, as I said, but that's some things that are some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I just listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL. That's arena.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. All right. Dan Orlovsky, gracious enough to join me here on the road. Dude, here's the thing. When you're calling a game, how many hours go into all the prep where you can just be autopilot during game day with stats and stuff?
Well, like for me, I think it's a little different because I do the NFL every day because of Get Up and in many ways NFL Live. So I feel I could call a game literally at the drop of a hat. You definitely dive into the game more specifically once you're the person calling that specific matchup. So I don't know, to put a quantified number on it, you're probably talking 10 plus hours of prep for that certain game when it comes to meetings, coaches, boards, film study, all that. It's a good amount, but it's an empowering feeling when you go into a game knowing I know exactly what's going to happen. In these situations or on these moments and what the job is best as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because remember, folks, we don't just turn on microphones and talk. This is the easy part. The rest is what you don't see. Yeah. Monday night, two teams in precarious spots. The Chargers have won a couple games this year. They've looked different. They've completely changed the interface of their offense. Justin Herbert seems comfortable. They've got clear direction with Jim Harbaugh. That's the easy side because Jim Harbaugh came in. He was a substantiated product. He had won at all levels. He was respected, and he came in and he changed it immediately. With the Cardinals, a little bit different. Jonathan Gannon off a tough second half in the Super Bowl where they lost to Kansas City. He was kind of looked at by Phillies fans as a scapegoat, which is ridiculous. He comes over, Monty Ossenfort to clean up the mess that Steve Keim left. How has he done so far, in your estimation, from week 1 of last year against Washington with Josh Dobbs all the way through now and changing the culture of this organization?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been positive moments. It's a little bit of an unknown or a not finished product right now. I think the reality is the difference in the teams is, one, the Chargers have a lot of individual talent. They've acquired a lot of talent over the last, let's call it 5 or 6 seasons. And now what they've done with Harbaugh is they've just gotten elite coaching to pair with that talent. And it shows. I think the Chargers are a sneaky team in the AFC. I really believe that. With the Cardinals, one, last year, Kyler hurt for the first 2/3 of part of the season. So what are you on offense? Can you really run your stuff? You don't have a dynamic person on the outside. You're trying to figure out what your identity under Drew's going to be and what it can be, and then what it was going to be when Kyler comes back. Kyler comes back, there's some good moments. And I still think that this season, if you just look at the offensive performance, you can't be anything but encouraged. I'm not telling everybody that it's been the number 1 offense in the NFL, the Detroit Lions, but you can be encouraged going, man, our run game at a lot of times looks really good. And man, James Conner's a very difficult tackle. And our tight end package is awesome. And Kyler's really progressed as a passer and his ability to see the field and throw the right throws. And Marvin's had moments, so he'll only get better. So encouraged by the offense. I think just candidly, you have to be discouraged by the defensive performance over the course of 6 weeks. I think that the problem with the Cardinals is they haven't drafted a really impactful defensive player since 2019, I believe. And I believe it's Buddha.
Yeah.
So, and Zach's not there. He's in Denver. He was a draft pick, but he's not on the team. So you watch a team that you sit there and go, well, they want to cover. They want to play coverage, okay? So they don't want to give up the big play, but then quarterbacks have 5 seconds to throw the football because there's no pass rush.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, you're trying to be strategic with when you pressure and play man and bring more bodies to get to the quarterback. But then do they really have the people to play lockdown man coverage in those situations? And so they're in that kind of tough middle ground, and you're trying to fabricate or you're trying to formulate success defensively. I just don't think they have the people right now because the drafts haven't been good enough over the course of 4, 5, 6, 7 years to have the people to play high-level defense.
See, I put a moratorium on talking about Steve Keim's drafting. If somebody else says it, it doesn't count. So I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that for me. One more here, because, the Cardinals have played some tough defenses. Washington was their guiding light. Now they're playing defense that nobody expected them to play when the season started. The 49ers, Detroit, and then they have the Chargers coming to town with the Harbaugh defense and Joey Bosa and Derwin James and just nightmare fuel. My question to you is more philosophical with this. I like to think about the game in a kind of a different way as just X's and O's. If you're play calling like Drew Petzing, okay, and you know what the status of the defense is on the other side, how much does that affect your actual play calling in an effort to extend drives, keep the ball on the field? If it's 51-49 run, do you always go to the run to eat more clock? If that sounds like a dumb thing to say, tell me. But it's something where I'm like, their time of possession has been terrible the last couple of weeks. Their offense can't stay on the field. I feel like they're forcing too many things because they know what the other side isn't capable of for the majority of series they're on the field.
Yeah, no, there's a definite truth to what you're saying. it's a fine line because there's one part of you that says, I want our defense to be on the field as little as possible. So yes, we want to control the football. We want to control the clock. Maybe we'll go for it on fourth downs. We want to be very efficient and clock eating drives. Then the alternative is, well, if you become so focused on being efficient that you're not explosive on offense, and the other team gets paid and they get off the field, and all of a sudden it's 14-0. Now we're constantly chasing, and we've been forced to be one-dimensional in the football game. So it's a really fine line, with Drew when it comes to. I still think you want to try and give your defense leads. Obviously, that's a simple thing. Is you want to try to turn your defense into a hunting, not a hunted unit. You want to try to force the other offense to play a little bit one-dimensional. It makes me think of the Cowboys years ago when, their defense played so much better than people expected it to play. And then all of a sudden they were playing like 52 snaps a game instead of 70, and so they were on the field so much less. So there is a theory that makes sense, but you're constantly looking for like that perfect marriage to make it happen.
Dan Orlovsky, tell people where they can find you. Oh, I got to ask you one more.
Sir.
Not only is Dan known for his, football prowess, he's also known for his, very eclectic food tastes. What's the one with the most vitriol that you get back? What's one where you're on the hill by yourself and ain't nobody else coming?
I'm an adamant person. Like, flavor in food is not something that I'm searching out regularly. I really believe that, like, more often than not, food is just fuel for me, and just trying to like make me feel like I'm energized and whatnot. So like I'll eat grilled chicken all the time. Like today, I went to the ESPN cafeteria and I said, and this happens more often than not, I'll say, can I get 4 chicken breasts cubed, heated up? And they'll just cube 4 grilled chicken breasts, and I'll take a little bit of ketchup and ranch, mix it together, and like dip it in that occasionally. But that's probably the one that people are like, you're so white.
Got it. So just make sure people think you're still human. So you're doing the ketchup and ranch just to show other people that you've got a little flexibility.
Yeah, cool. That I'll branch out a little.
I dig it. You belong in the Jetsons, man. Just eat a damn pill and you'll be good for the day. Dan Orlovsky, exactly. Tell people where they can find you all over ESPN.
Yeah, I'm on ESPN every day during football season. Get Up, First Take, NFL Live, Sports Center. I love being a part of it, and I'm all over social media. I'm pretty active during football season and social as well.
At Dan Orlovsky 7 on Twitter. Thanks so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
I was Spencer, Locked on Cardinals. We'll be right back. Let's break down what the great Dan Orlovsky said next. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so popular. Are you kidding me? With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks.com has you covered for everything that you were looking for regarding daily fantasy sports. And the coolest part about it's so easy to do. It takes less than 60 seconds. You pick more or less, between 2 and 6, more or less in their projected stats. You can win up to 100 times your cheese, man. And it's not, just any one specific sport. They've got them all. We got basketball season right around the corner, baby. On top of all of that, withdrawals, say you win some cheese, withdrawals can happen in less than 15 minutes. You don't have to be waiting days to get your money. It's wild. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, baby. Why would we not want to talk about them as much as possible? FanDuel has you covered for everything NFL. NBA's around the corner. You got college football in full swing. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's the information age. You don't have to go to a bunch of different Google websites. All you have to do is go to the place where you want to place your wager, if I can speak, and it'll give you all the information necessary for you to make an informed decision one way or the other. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Dan's one of the best. It's awesome to get his perspective because, first of all, he played in the league for over a decade, and he loves ball. He is such a football nerd, and you can tell. You can tell he loves it when he talks about it. He said a couple very, very interesting things And one of which is he said without a shadow of a doubt, Kyler Murray's top 12, top 14. So when you look at it, and I know that lends to what I've been discussing. I get it, okay? That was the right answer to make it seem like everything that I've said is for naught. It isn't for naught. Taking the highs with the lows, I think of it this way. The highs aren't much higher with other quarterbacks, and the lows can be much lower. You look across the landscape of the NFL, Kyler Murray's not perfect, okay? Kyler Murray has more oh my God moments than many quarterbacks. And while it's been inconsistent, yes. And while the offense has stalled at times, yes. I think that people have unnecessarily high expectations for this team in 2024. It's becoming incredibly obvious that people expect, I don't know if there's some outlets that are just like, oh, playoffs are bust. I'm sure there have been. Playoffs are bust when the season started. It's like, let's be realistic, guys. The Cardinals are 2-4. If they win on Monday night, we're going to be having very different conversations from if they lose, just like we had after they beat the 49ers, after losing so aggressively and embarrassingly to the Washington Commanders at home. I have a feel like it's going to be a ping pong match for the rest of the year. The highs are going to be high, the lows are going to be low, and both of them are going to be too high and too low than they should be. And that's just kind of where we're at. Now with Marv, that's the interesting thing that I wanted to focus on in this segment. I'm going to be doing, the full breakdown, final injury report, all that stuff on Monday. I know it's a Monday night game, so you expect Fridays to be that. We have an extra day today. We have an extra day this week. The Marv stuff, he said, and he gave that great, anecdote about Calvin Johnson. He's like, oh yeah, he's going to be good. You can just tell. And the rest is just a smoothing out period. And if you have been listening to Locked On Cardinals, if you're an everyday or if this is your first listen, thank you. Let me recap what I've said when they drafted him. He's not going to be the first option right away. They're going to run the ball. They're going to throw the ball to Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison Jr., if they can't run the ball effectively, is going to get bracketed coverage. He's going to get CB1 coverage. Trey McBride was slow out the gate. He missed a game. And, the Cardinals have been really trying to run the ball in an effort to keep the defense off the field and opposing offenses off the field. So we saw the peak was the LA game. We saw the touchdown, je ne sais quoi that that's the second time I've said that this month. I think I'm done with je ne sais quoi for the month. We've seen at times they've been well on the same page, and other times they haven't been. That's NFL reps. They've played 4 games together or 5 games together. And he was out pretty much for the majority of last week, trending towards playing. We don't know yet. That's what Monday's for him, to wait for all that stuff until Monday. But the insight that Dan gave was interesting. It's like, yeah, just chill. I'm not putting words in his mouth per se. It's like, listen, he's got a couple things that are going against him. One, he has CB1 coverage on him. And 2, it's not necessarily an offense that's conducive to a wide receiver 1 breakout. Like when people say Malik Neighbors is better than Marvin Harrison Jr. because of the numbers, look at the offense. The offense is a dumpster fire in New York. You put Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. in New York's offense, Kyler's probably elevating the numbers that Malik Neighbors has now. It's situational. And this is a slow, boring offense that has explosive nature in it, depending on game flow. But just because he hasn't exploded yet doesn't mean that anything's to panic. Less than half a year into his rookie season. It's Looney Tunes for people to think that. Now, going into tonight or Monday night, Dan pretty much said, the defense isn't there yet. They don't have a pass rush. And these are things we all know. So Kyler Murray needs to be special. Kyler Murray needs to elevate. I talked about it yesterday during the crossover with David Drogemeyer. Go check that out. Kyler Murray needs to be special. That's what it is. I'll do my full game breakdown on Monday, but I did want to I've been waiting to get Dan on for a couple years. I've been trying, and I think it was 1,000,000% worth it. Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you on Monday ahead of Monday Night Football. Cardinals Chargers. Talk to you then.